It's the biggest walkout in the history of the NHS. Tens of thousands of nurses across most of the UK went on strike this morning as a bitter pay dispute came to a head. Let's have a look at some of the detail for you and some of the impact it's having as well. Up to 100,000 nurses are taking part in the industrial action in England, Wales and Northern Ireland for 12 hours until 8 o'clock tonight or 7 o'clock in Wales. There were picket lines outside dozens of hospitals today, right across the United Kingdom, as you can see here. We should say that in Scotland, strikes were called off after two unions accepted an improved pay offer from the government. Well, 76 trusts are affected, around a quarter of those in England, all but one health board in Wales and every single trust in Northern Ireland. And it's thought around 70,000 appointments, procedures and surgeries will have been lost or postponed, and that is in England alone. The Royal College of Nursing is calling for a pay increase of 5% above inflation for its members. And once you factor everything in, that's actually a 19% pay rise. Well, our health correspondent Catherine Jones has this report on the day the nurses walked out.
What do you want? When do you want it? Now!
Nurses as you've never seen them before, picketing outside the hospitals where they'd usually be inside caring for their patients.
How do you feel about being on a picket line for the first time ever?
So it's something that I did not want to do, but the government has forced us to do that. So that's why I'm here, to fight for our patients and to fight for the NHS.
We do worry about people staying in the profession, and we think that the key to that is having good pay.
I love the hospital, I love where we work, I love my job, I'm so passionate about my job, but if I have to move, I have to move. It's just really sad.
What do we want? Say something!
The biggest impact of this action has been on operations and outpatient visits, with 70,000 postponed in England alone. Leanna was due to take her 2-year-old daughter to hospital in Cambridge for an appointment related to a kidney scan.
It would have been really good to hear today about the scan and just have our minds put at rest. Hopefully everything is fine.
But it's now been rescheduled for February.
That is frustrating, but my anger is not directed against the nurses who are doing their best for patient care. It's directed against the government.
And stuck in the middle, dealing with the consequences, hospital bosses like Tim.
Obviously, this is a national dispute about a national pay award, and I think we are obviously needing to manage the local consequences of that. I think what we want to do is to see people taking a sensible and pragmatic approach to coming to a solution here.
The current pay award is worth around 4.8% for most nurses. So is the man responsible for England's health service minded to improve that?
We hugely value the work that nurses do, and that's why we accepted in full the recommendations of the independent pay review body. And it's also why last year, when the rest of the public sector had a pay freeze, we recognised the extra contribution that nurses had made, and nurses received an extra 3% at a time when many others did not.
But when ministers point out that they're only following independent recommendations on pay, the nurses counter by saying those calculations were made back in February, before the true scale of the cost of living crisis became clear.
Thank you for everything you do.
And that is why the strike's leader insists ministers must now engage on the issue of better pay for nurses.
They will always put their patients first. Safety comes before anything, but they are working in an unsafe environment. They're working with high risk at this minute in time. And why? Because 50,000 nursing vacant posts. We are struggling to retain the brilliant nurses that you see around you here today, and we're struggling to recruit nurses in. This is no way for a government to treat our profession.
What do we want? Say something! Who's it for? You!
This is the first of two 12-hour-long strikes called by the Royal College of Nursing. The next one is on Tuesday. But the union has a mandate for strike action that lasts until next May, meaning they can keep coming out onto the picket lines if they don't get a satisfactory deal.